Hi, today we're talking about the importance of trust with Grahame Broadbelt. So we're talking about trust. I mean, it's a key thing, right? Most important thing in our organisations. Why is it so important, Grahame?
Because if in a human-centric organisation, the most important thing is relationships, right? It's the people-to-people transactions, and the quality of relationships is significantly affected by the quality of trust, right? So it's very, very difficult to have a positive, transformative, generative relationship with someone or with a group of people that you do not trust. So trust is fundamental. It's the kind of oil that makes relationships work. And one of the big challenges with trust, of course, is that it's really difficult to build and it's really easy to erode. And so one of the crucial things that leaders and managers, and the more senior you are, the more important this is to build, create, maintain an environment of trust in an organization. Very difficult to do, but absolutely essential if you're going to try and create the conditions through which all of the kind of people-to-people interactions that you're interested in, employee to employee, employee to employee, employee to client or customer, that those transactions, those relational things are going to work really well.
So we talk about the importance of trust, and it makes me think about, as you said, it takes a long time to build trust.
Yeah.
Do organisations value the time that it takes to build trust and therefore allocate time within organisations in order to build trust? What's getting in the way?
Yeah, I think that lots of organisations that are not taking a human-centric approach don't value trust in the way that they should, because they don't value the interaction between people in the way that they should. So if you just treat people as units of production, as machines, as entirely interchangeable with other people and so on, then you're not going to be at all concerned about building a relationship with them and so on, and therefore you're not going to be concerned about the kind of architecture of trust in an organisation. But if you really want to transform organisational performance, then you're only going to do that through people. And all that performance exists in the relationships between people. And if we're saying that the essential oil that helps those relationships work is trust, then you've got to spend time, doing things that foster an environment of trust. And obviously, and there are a couple of things around that. The first one is transparency. So we talk a lot in organisations about openness and so on. And there's obviously lots of boundaries about how open should we be and so on. But of course, the more that the organisations operate in little pockets of secrets and so on, then the more that it makes an environment of trust difficult. The other one is authenticity.
Tricky word. Tell me just in terms of what it means.
Well, in this context, it's the simple business of doing what I say. So if I say that I'm going to do this, then I do it. If I say that I believe in these things, then my behaviour is consistent with those beliefs. If I say that this is a rule for everybody, then I don't break that rule myself. So
is that as a skill as a leader or a manager, or is it a skill for everyone in order to be accountable is another?
Yeah. Well, I think accountability is a really, really important part of this too, Joe, as you say, because we all might make mistakes, and we all, we're all trying to learn. So you can be responsible and be accountable is a really, really important part of building effective relationships, so that people recognise that you will take responsibility for the things that you're responsible for and so on, and you'll do that in a kind of an honourable and an intentional way. So that's also part of this kind of wider trust architecture that I'm describing. But we I think that at the heart of all this is something that we already all know. We all operate in a social environment, whether it's at home, at work, in different parts of our lives, and we know how important it is, how important trust is in so many of our relationships. Some of our deepest and most important relationships are relationships that are absolutely built on solid foundations of trust. If you describe, the characteristics of some of our closest friends, for example, then one of the things that you would say is, I absolutely and totally trust them. So we already understand how important trust is to effective relationships. We just need to understand a little bit more about how important it is in organisations.
And to create the space
And
for people to actually get to know each other and build foundations of openness and honesty and transparency,
Right.
in the hope that we may get to trust. Because I think through that process of being honest and open, we're hopefully building up that relationship in order to be trustworthy.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's an enormous amount of work, done on the way in which teams operate. All the work that Google did on psychological safety, and fundamentally that's about trust. It's being people being safe to disagree, people being safe to be to be critical of systems or other people, and so on. Recognizing that's operating in an environment where you're not going to be punished for those kinds of behaviours. That's really, really important.
And there's also, from working with groups, I get this sense that building relationships is really important and building trust is really important, but getting the job done is also very important. So there comes a time when it's just like, you just need to get it done. So I think we're always in this kind of constant struggle with trying to create space to build relationships. And COVID, as we know, has highlighted, amplified the importance of getting to know each other and building trust. However, the job still needs to get done. So we sometimes perhaps get a bit impatient about the building of trust and just do it. I think that's really hard too.
Yeah, I agree.
What happens when there's mistrust within organisations?
Well, we've all experienced it. It creates all sorts of noise. All sorts of stuff that doesn't help actually get the job done, or doesn't help learning, doesn't help growth, and so on, because you end up creating kind of politics and intrigues and vendettas and all those kinds of things. So yeah, I mean, it kind of silts up the organisation, makes it more difficult for it to function. If trust is the oil, then the opposite of that is like the grinding of gears. So it just doesn't work.
And human-centred organisations, the approach, is trust at the heart of it? I mean, is that part of the purpose, do you think, around like what a human-centric organisation is trying to build, is building trust?
Yeah, well, we talk in the framework about the kind of moral centre. And you mentioned, one of the really important things about trust is honesty. It's just telling the truth. Truth seems to be a very biddable thing at the moment in society. We seem to be in struggling with that, about what's true and what's not. Lots of counterfactual stuff, lots of opinion masquerading as facts, and so on. And we're in a position where being honest and being true and and understanding what's real and what's not real, it becomes ever more important. And the only way we can do that is by supporting each other. Inquiring, learning, growing ourselves. And the only way we can do that is if we trust each other. Dishonesty, poor information, all of that is rooted in the fact that one group of people doesn't trust another group of people. They think that they're lying to them, and so on. So we end up in a position where the whole architecture of trust ends up being eroded, and we operate in these little echo chambers and and so on that make it much more difficult for us to reach out, learn, grow. Improve our understanding of the nature of the world, and so on. That's all part of it. So for me, the moral centre, honesty is part of the way in which an organisation will operate. We will tell the truth. Really hard to do.
It strikes me that it's a simple thing to say, but within an organisation, the culture of an organisation is going to play a big part in whether or not that's possible.
Yeah. But most of the time when we talk to lots of organisations and individuals in organisations, people know when senior people are lying to them. They just know. Do
you think we're getting better at working out when people are lying, or within organisations. I wonder if, or before we knew it, but we just kind of said, well, he's just the boss, or she's just the boss, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, well,
whereas now we feel a little bit more like, well, actually, that's not going to work for me, and I'm maybe a bit more courageous in our ability to notice it and to.
Well, that's where we all might find ourselves in a position where we're struggling to articulate the truth. We don't want to stand up and say what it is that we think, because we're worried that we might get clobbered, as a result of that. But that's part of creating the conditions where, trust can thrive, is, where we're able to talk openly about what it is that we think and feel and so on. And this plays, Joe, into all sorts of issues around diversity and inclusion. Of course, as part of all of that, a human-centric organisation recognises diversity and difference as a strength, and it's able to navigate.
But it's only been through these triggers of things that have happened that's highlighted the challenge. And one of the things that just made me think about is how we weren't trusted before, almost, to work from home, because if you work from home, you're just skiving, right?
Right.
Well, we know, based on lots of evidence, because of COVID, actually, we are far more productive. We're suddenly now trusted, to the extent now where people have said, you know what, we're not going to keep our offices open anymore. You can carry on working from home. It's working out really well for us. And my goodness, you're being extremely productive. So I think we've mentioned this before, but this idea of capitalizing from what we've learned through the pandemic and holding on to that trust. There is trust in certain elements within our organisation. We are trusted to work very hard. Oh, that's good. Now we just need to be trusted to be listened to and be heard and be supportive of others in our organisation.
I think that's right. That's one of the things that we've discovered. To say is that the more that we trust people, the more that trust is repaid. That's right.
Or I think organisations were surprised. My goodness, not only are people working well, they're working for even longer than they would do when they're at work.
They'll be more productive and so on. Absolutely. But I mean, I think that plays into the kind of myth of control. So this whole idea that the best way to deliver organisational performance through people is to control people.
Have them in the office where you can see them working. You can every now and then wander around and see what people are up to,
as opposed to trusting them to get on with the work that they need to do, and be, as long as you're really clear about what that is, and supporting people to be able to do it and so on, then trust works.
Thank you for watching, and if you would like to download the white paper, you can do so in the link in the description.